Hey everyone, in the video that I made that you're going to watch in just a second, I explained my experience of serving as a juror in Cherokee County, Georgia. And I showed you some documentation of the fact that I was on jury duty. One thing I forgot to mention is that the court system pays jurors $35 a day, and they issue you a debit card. And for every day that you're required to appear in the courthouse, whether you actually serve as a juror or not, the fact that you're summoned and required to be in the courthouse that day, they give you $35. And we were given this card on day one. It was worthless on day one, and they said it would be filled, it would become active on Friday, when at the end of the week, obviously on Friday afternoon. And you would only get paid $35 a day for the days that you were required to appear. So I appeared for 4 days. So this card is now worth $140. So anyway, they used to pay $25 a day, I heard, but now they've upped it to $35 a day. I mean, it's not much, but anyway, it's an important fact that I wanted to explain in doing jury duty in Cherokee County, Georgia. Now, here's the main video. Take a look. Hey everyone, last week I was on jury duty in Cherokee County, Georgia. And in this video, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience. But first, I want to document the fact that I actually was on jury duty because I have these stickers that they gave me every day that I appeared. Now, just as a side note, I did jury duty in April 2022, and that's where I got this sticker. And I have another sticker here that's been here since April of 2022. And coincidentally, when I got summons this time, I was very surprised in July 2025 that I got summoned again to appear for jury duty. And I happened to have this notebook in my car. I used a spiral notebook, but in April of 2022, I put this notebook aside, lost track of where it was. It was virtually a empty notebook that I hadn't used, but I did put my jury sticker on there. And then when I went to jury duty the first day in July of this year, I took my sticker off and was going to put it on the back of this notebook, and I realized, wow, this is the same exact notebook that I had started using, one page only, 3 years ago. So it was just really ironic that it worked out that way with this notebook. But as you can see, there are 4 stickers right here. These are the actual stickers that I wore, one every day while I was on jury duty. I appeared on Monday. I went to the courthouse, and the first half of the day, they dismissed me after about 3 or 4 hours. I didn't get called up to go to a courtroom to be interviewed or anything like that. There were probably about 150 people in the room that reported for jury duty, and they dismissed, I'd say, at least half of us just before lunch on Monday. And then Monday night, I checked in. I was not required to appear in court on Tuesday, and I figured, okay, that's the end of my jury duty. But then Tuesday night, I got a message that I was supposed to appear on Wednesday morning, which I did. And so I've got these certificate of jury service. I was there from July 14th was a Monday, and then I appeared Wednesday, July 16th, got assigned to a case. I was interviewed, and I'm going to explain what the process of what happened. And I was in the courthouse on Thursday, and then the last day of my jury duty was Friday, July 18th, when we rendered a verdict to that case. So the way this worked was that I appeared on Monday. There were about 150 people in the room, and they explained that this is a process. Not everybody obviously is going to be called up, and kind of just like hurry up and wait. And after a couple of hours, they came back in the room, and it was announced that they announced the numbers of the jurors. That we would get assigned a number. They announced those numbers, and after they went through the list, they said, "You're now dismissed for the day. Please check in tonight on the website to see if you're required to appear tomorrow." And so Monday night, I got the message that I was not required to appear on Tuesday morning. And like I said earlier, I did not think that I would be required to go back on Wednesday. I thought that's the end. They don't really need many jurors this week, whatever. That was my thinking. But then on Tuesday night, I saw the message that I was supposed to appear on Wednesday morning. And I knew the chances were very probable that I would go into a courtroom and be interviewed among many other jurors, potential jurors, and to be interviewed by the attorneys on both sides. And I knew that was part of the process, and indeed that happened. And there were, I think, 18 of us that went in the room, and they just needed 6 of us. So they interviewed us. That probably lasted an hour, maybe 2 hours. They gave general instructions, general questions where we raised our hand, yes or no, and then the individual attorneys asked us each individually any further follow-up questions based on answers and what they knew about our background prior to going into jury. When we first get the summons prior to reporting the first day, we are required to submit a series of answers to certain questions. So the attorneys had those answers. They kind of knew a little bit about our background, what we did for a living, general information. And so based on that and answers that we gave, they might have follow-up questions for each of us individually. They asked me a number of questions personally. I answered and didn't know what to expect. We were then, I think we broke for lunch. I'm not sure if we broke for lunch or they just dismissed us for a period of time prior to lunch. I forget the timing of that. I think it was before lunch. And then the 18 of us were escorted back into the room. And let me back up. There were 2 people that were disqualified during that first question and answer period. They just couldn't, with a clear conscience or whatever reasons they had, they could not, they were just so adamant in their answers that didn't make, they proved that they were not going to be neutral and open-minded and fair in the process, so the judge dismissed them. And so there were, that left 16 of us, I think it was, that were then back in the courtroom, and then they announced the 6 jurors. They actually announced 7 jurors. They called out our numbers and they said, you're the 7 that are required to stay. Everybody else is dismissed. And the reason they picked 7 was that they only needed a jury of 6, but they wanted 7 of us to sit through the trial, and then at the end of the trial, one person was an alternate. And so there were 7 of us that heard the case. I won't go into the details of the case. If you ever want to know information about that, feel free to meet up with me in Canton, and that's the kind of conversation I'd be happy to have with anybody in a personal, setting and a conversation. But this video is just to give you a better idea of the process and the experience of serving as a juror and what to expect when you get summoned to go into Cherokee County Courthouse here. So we were selected to be the juror. We found out basic facts about the case. Opening arguments by each side started, and the judge instructed us that these opening statements by the defense attorney and the prosecutor are not evidence. They're just kind of their basic presentation. We're not to consider that as evidence, but they both had an opportunity to kind of frame what the case was about. And so this was a DUI case, so I'll say that. And then there were witnesses that were called during the trial, which lasted for 3 days. And I was really surprised by that, especially because the judge and the prosecutor in their remarks said that they thought this was going to be a very quick case, and that we may even get the opportunity to begin deliberations that day or the next morning. And so Wednesday, 5 o'clock, they like to cut off, they like to stop the trial at 5 o'clock or around that time. And it was clear that the witness on the stand, who was a police officer, it was a police officer from the city of Woodstock, he was on the stand, and his testimony had not yet ended. They were still questioning him, the defense and the prosecutor. And so we came back the next morning on Thursday morning and started at that point. And that police officer finished his role as a witness. And then there was a second witness that was called, who was an expert witness about not the facts of the case, but just kind of technical things about how a police officer administers these tests, these roadside tests. And so that was an expert witness, and there were questions and answers, and that lasted until 5 o'clock on Thursday. And there was supposed to be another witness, an expert witness, to take the stand, but they ran out of time. So we came back Friday morning, and we found out that that second expert witness was not going to testify, and that the both sides were finished, and they had closing statements. So the prosecution and the defense attorney both presented their closing arguments, which the judge reminded us that this is not evidence. Their closing remarks should not be considered as evidence, but it's their opportunity to kind of sell us on what their position is, and how they want us to rule in the favor of their client. So that went through just up until lunchtime, and then the judge dismissed us to go back to the jury room and begin our deliberations. And he gave us the choice of going to lunch if we wanted for an hour or so, and if we did that we were not to discuss the case during lunch. And so we decided to take a lunch. We took about an hour off, and the six of us scattered. And I'd say before lunch, before we were dismissed to the courtroom, to the jury room, the judge announced which juror was the alternate, and then dismissed that juror. And that juror was still on call in case something happened to one of the jurors, and we needed that replacement. So there were six of us after lunch on Friday that began deliberations, and there were three charges, and we had a lot of conversation in the jury room about this, and there were a couple of times during the total 4 hours, I guess, that we deliberated, we asked the judge, or we sent notes to the judge. He called us into the courtroom. We had questions. We couldn't really come to a decision on the three charges that were before us. And we came to an agreement, the jury came to an agreement on one of the charges, but the other two charges, we could not come to an agreement. And at around 5 o'clock, we were before the judge, and basically told him we can't come to an agreement. And he said, well, you haven't spent enough time. I'm sending you back, and I'll call you after some time to come back here. But I want you guys to talk about it more and try your best to come to an agreement. And then we met for about an hour and a half, and we really didn't make any progress. And at 6:30, or maybe it was 6, we were called into the jury room, and the judge wanted to know what our verdict was on the one charge that we had agreement on. And then the other two, he declared, I don't know what the official word was, a mistrial, or I guess it's called a mistrial. And so there was no conviction. And as I understand it, on those other two charges, it will be up to the prosecutor whether they want to prosecute the defendant again on that. But the one charge was he was not guilty on one of the three charges. And so the defendant, I don't know what happened to him. That was the end of the case, and we just left, and that was it. So anyway, that was my experience, July 2025, being a juror in Cherokee County, Georgia. This is the second time that I actually served on a jury in my life. The first time was over 20 years ago in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., in Prince George's County, Maryland. That was about 20, or maybe even, no, it was probably 25 or 30 years ago. And anyway, so this is the second time I actually served on a jury, and that was my experience. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to leave a comment or ask a question. I do get on YouTube and try to answer as many questions or respond to comments as I can on the random videos that I post. And if you see my channel, you see there's actually a playlist for random videos. So anyway, that's all for now. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have you ever served on a jury? What was your experience? Let me know.